the businessman who lost his life on the border of Guadalajara and Zapopan in Jalisco. He was the direct objective of an armed attack against his Lamborghini Urus in Zapopan. The government of the state of Jalisco confirmed this. He rolled up in a car that's worth $5 million, accompanied by his 16-year-old daughter, who also lost her life. They were also accompanied by their escorts, who were in other vehicles, who responded to the aggression, having a firefight that lasted various minutes. According to investigators, one of the lines of investigation points at Rifas Colombianas. He was a commercial businessman, owner of bodegas, and he was also part of a owner of a transportation company dedicated to logistics services with dry boxes and reefers. They're still investigating. I don't know how much we hear about investigation. Let me ask y'all something. There's legitimate businessmen in Mexico, right? Do all legitimate men have to hide their money and roll around in a Toyota on foot or on a bike like Velez would say? Or do they ride around in their Mercedes and their Lamborghinis and the Bugattis? Or do they all roll around in those things but have 2 trucks full of soldiers with automatic weapons? Is that a normal thing for the average businessman to roll around like that? This guy was rolling with a caravan. Because if I gotta walk around with that many soldiers, my daughter's never getting in my motherfucking car. It's up to how you roll, but you know the risk you're taking. Either way, everyone pocket watching and knows who has money regardless of what you're driving. This guy had an army with him. He failed his daughter miserably. There's the Urus. These men are blasting high-powered projectiles through a 16-year-old. May they all rot in the deepest hell that can be found in every multiverse. And as a father, you failed your child. Because if you need to roll around with that many people, your kid shouldn't be in your fucking car. But Shy, it's natural to want to be... I don't give a fuck. I don't care. There's a give and a take to everything in life. You can't have your fucking cake and eat it too.
¡Vámonos! ¡8-5! ¡Vámonos a verga! ¡Vámonos! ¡Sa, sa, sa, sa! ¡Tranquilo!
All right, this is the other side view. Now, from my recollection, this is basically where this camera is about where they pulled up to air that shit out. In front of him and right here on the side.
Alrededor de 2021, después de la pandemia por COVID-19. Sin embargo, la actividad ilegal ya había sido...
There was one victim in that shit. One real victim in that shit. Unless somebody got hit with a stray that I don't know about, it was that little girl. And that man failed that child. She should have never been in this car. If you need that much security, you don't need her in your car. I think they were doing those raffles at the Mercado and he was in on it. What do you mean raffles? You talking about those car raffles, like big money raffles? This is the young lady that passed away, the 16-year-old. The decisions that adults make. What the fuck was her dad thinking? That everything was all good, just like Panu was thinking. Just a kid being a kid. Yeah, I'm sorry he failed her. The decisions we make echo into eternity and they bleed all over everybody we love. That's the bottom line. Shout out Tere for helping push the content forward with these links. Bro, look at the fucking windshield, bro. Shorty didn't have a chance. Everything you paid out in security was shit. Everything you wished for your child, everything you invested in that child, gone. because you doing something that makes you need that much security. He failed his daughter, man. Worst part that it was like a 15-minute shootout and the cops ain't show up till after, of course. All right, as you can see here, I guess the Urus is in front, and this is one of the white pickups right here. And this is another one of the white pickups right here. You're going to see when the shit hits the fan, they're all going to go in reverse. The thing is that life gets so normalized that they sometimes get too comfortable and think think nothing's going to happen. Well, lo cagaron. Everything in the game teaches you that comfort kills. And people get mad at me for calling people that been in the game. Oh, Shy, you don't know shit about nothing. Da, 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 da. These guys been in the game. They didn't know shit either. Because guess what?
Your services are no longer needed in the community.
Who the bomb clot?
So there's the trucks moving. You see this Jeep right here? Stopped right there, started busting. I don't know if there's somebody in front. Now you'll see the pickups back up. I'm going to play it a couple of times. Now, I thought this was the red truck that the other guys were in front of, but this one don't have a grill. So this guy is either recognizance or he's hightailing it the fuck out of there. Reverse. Reverse, reverse. Reverse, reverse. Look at him, look at him, look at him, look at him, look at him. The Urus is over there. The 16-year-old girl, she's up the block. She's probably gone by now. These guys is reversing. That's what he paid for. These look like the bad guys. I don't know who's the bad guys in this situation. I'm gonna let it run one more time. See, I thought it was this truck. I thought it was that truck, but that truck has a grill.
¡Vámonos! ¡8-5! ¡Vámonos, a verga! ¡Vámonos!
This is where those guys pulled that Jeep over to the side that we were watching it from this side over here. And they're busting at the Urus that's over there. Security got their ass whooped. And they lost. They lost the objective and they lost his daughter. They all failed him and he failed her. Alberto Prieto, a grocer, his minor daughter, and a bodyguard were unalived in an armed attack in Zapopan. 5 others were injured. They were victims too. They ain't had shit to do with that. 1 woman seriously. The bodyguards held out for 15 minutes before being hammered down without any authorities arriving. Look at that shit, man. ¿Pa qué sirvió el Lamborghini? Prieto, lo cagaste. So if that was his racket that he was in the Raffles and people were paying these Raffles and they weren't paying out, you failed your child. And that's why you're walking around with security like that. That ain't the response of somebody who played a raffle. He had to be involved in way deeper rackets. The firefight, which witnesses say lasted up to 15 minutes, was captured on video by the assailants themselves and quickly spread across social media, amplifying the sense of public alarm. These fools film themselves. They want you to see this shit. El Universal reports that the attack was meticulously planned and executed with military-like precision. The assailants employed a classic blocking tactic, using multiple high-cylinder vehicles to box in their target. Forensic teams later documented at least 200 spent shell casings at the scene, a testament to the sheer volume of firepower deployed. At least seven, possibly as many as 10 hammermen participated in the assault, firing from several angles before fleeing in two vehicles. Despite a rapid response from local and state police, the National Guard and the Mexican Army, including aerial patrols, no arrest has been made as of December 30th, 2025. Prieto Valencia, who was unalived inside his vehicle, was not alone in his final moments. His teenage daughter, pulled from the wreckage and rushed to a nearby emergency post, succumbed to her injuries shortly thereafter. One of his bodyguards was also unalived while trying to repel the attack, and 4 other members of the security team, some reportedly retired military personnel, were wounded, one critically. The security detail's training and resistance likely prolonged the firefight, but it was not enough to prevent the tragedy. It wasn't worth shit. But what lay beneath this public display of violence, as detailed by El Universal and corroborated by investigating reporting, the roots of the ambush trace far deeper than a simple act of personal vendetta. Prieto Valencia was not just a wealthy entrepreneur with a taste for luxury and cars and private security. He was a linchpin in the logistics of the market of abastos, overseeing the trade of grains, cereal, and groceries, a sector awash with cash and increasingly criminal interests. His business, Transportes Odal, founded in 2002, boasted a fleet of reefers, refrigerated, and dry cargo trucks, and carried the prestigious CT-PAT security certification from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, underscoring his commitment to secure supply chains. However, Prieto Valencia's prominence also made him a target. Authorities and journalists alike have pointed to his active role in exposing the operation of illegal Colombian rifles. Wait, was this guy on the other side? Was this guy a good guy? This guy sounds like he was on the police side of things. However, Prieto Valencia's prominence also made him a target. Authorities and journalists alike have pointed to his active role in exposing the operation of illegal Colombian Raffles, a sophisticated extortion racket that has migrated from South America to Mexico. In Colombia, Raffles are regulated and contributed to public health funding. In Mexico, they've morphed into a predatory tool of organized crime, especially in places like the market of abastos. Here, criminal cells, often comprising both locals and foreigners, coerce merchants into buying raffle tickets under the threat of violence. The promised prizes are largely fictitious. The real purpose is to extract protection payments and launder illicit earnings. Sounds like one of the good guys. I still say he failed his daughter, because if you're one of the good guys and they're after your ass and you need that much security, she shouldn't be in your car. These raffles are intimately linked to the gota a gota loan sharking system, where merchants are offered high interest, short-term loans upon falling behind, are forced to buy raffle tickets as a form of disguised repayment. The scheme creates a dual mechanism. It justifies the flow of cash while simultaneously reinforcing criminal control over the marketplace. According to investigative sources cited by El Universal, Prieto's resistance to these schemes, whether by barring criminal operators from his sphere of influence, serving as a source of journalistic expose, or simply refusing to pay protection on a large scale, marked him as a high-value target. Oh, salutes to him then. Salutes to him. He fought back, still failed his daughter. You could fight back. You could be a freedom fighter. She shouldn't have been in the car. Jalisco, and particularly the Guadalajara metropolitan area, has long been a battleground for organized crime. The 4 letters designated a foreign terrorist organization by Trompito's administration is notorious for its violent enforcement of territorial control and its willingness to target high-profile figures who threaten its unrest. The attack on Prieto Valencia, with its paramilitary overtones and public spectacle was a chilling demonstration of the cartel's reach and limitation of state authority. So, as reported by Universal, the response from law enforcement was swift, but ultimately ineffective. Yeah, so swift. They went at it for 15 minutes. Nobody showed up. In apprehending the perpetrators, the incident has laid bare the fragility of the rule of law in Jalisco, where even the best connected and most security-conscious business leaders are vulnerable. The message to the business community would not be clear. Wealth and private protection offer little insulation against the machinery of organized crime. If someone of Prieto Valencia's stature, backed by military-trained bodyguards and a reputation for resilience, can be eliminated in such a public and brutal fashion, what hope is there for smaller merchants and entrepreneurs? Salvador Zamora, ironically, Jalisco's Secretary General of Government, acknowledged the connection between Prieto Valencia's unaliving and his efforts to expose the Colombian Raffles. He noted that prior media reports, particularly from Grupo Felma, had linked the businessman to public denunciations of this illicit activity. Exposing the Colombian Raffles, Zamora said, was a direct challenge to the criminal organizations that thrive on silence and complicity. The state's inability to protect such a figure, he implied, is an admission that regulatory control over strategic sectors of the informal economy is slipping away. The unaliving of Prieto, then, is more than a tragic footnote in Mexico's ongoing struggle with cartel violence. It is a stark illustration of the deep entanglement between the formal economy and transnational criminal networks. The brazenness of the attack and the impunity with which it was carried out raises urgent questions about the cost of doing business in Mexico's commercial heartlands. For now, the market of abastos and the wider business community are left to grapple with the chilling reality that silence and fear may be the price of survival. You gotta take that with a grain of salt, though, Shy. Can't tell what's true and what ain't. What exactly are we talking about? What, that if he was a good man? I already assumed that he was a bad man. I'll tell you another thing. Before I knew who Don Alejo was, I thought he was a cartel leader. I learned through a documentary called Buto, about Benazir Bhutto, how government and anybody who wants to manipulate you could just give you a slow motion perp walk video and then make you the bad guy. And then you learn about what that person is and you find out, oh, they weren't the bad guy at all. They just put them in slow motion and made them look bad. Up to 5 minutes ago, I thought Prieto was a fucking dirtbag. Usually when they're dirtbags, they tell us they're dirtbags, right? The media tells us they're dirtbags. Very rare that they tell us that they were people that fought back. No era un Santa Paloma, acusado de lavado de activos. He wasn't a peaceful saint. He's accused of laundering money. The story of El Prieto, the man who lost his life in the Lambo, is more complex than what we imagined. What we read told us that he was opposition to these raffles, these scam raffles. Now they're saying, well, his name has come up in investigations for money laundering within those raffles. Somebody's lying, evidently. He said there's no sentence or there's no formal indictment, but his name came up in investigation for possible irregular money schemes and a lifestyle that called attention. Yeah, it called so much attention that he failed his child. If you look at the Instagram from Real Ivan Wayne, which is supposedly Ivan's Instagram, he said they've been out there pulling the same kind of scam. You got attention, giving away money. Las primeras 20 personas, the first 20 people who send their bank number, were given $1,000 a piece as a Christmas gift. Only people from Mexico. Yeah, nothing is free. Somebody wanted him over with. Bad. They got their wish, but they took a 16-year-old with them. And it ain't just on him. Fuck them too. Not that they wouldn't have gave a fuck if there was a 3-year-old in there. Doesn't matter. Bro, definitely a bad guy. They sent 30 of them for him. Bro, I jumped to the conclusion on the 30 guys that he was a bad guy, right? Then we read an article that painted this man as somebody that was Don Alejo style, somebody that was Doña Miriam style, somebody that was going against the crime, right? They painted him as a guy that was trying to break up these illegal Colombian gambling rings. So I took the smut that I put on his name and I took it back and I still blame him for what happened to his child. Because again, good or bad, you need that much security. She shouldn't be in the car with you. Then Velez was like, but how about this? Bow. And then everybody started giving me information. And they were saying the exact opposite of what this article was saying. So it could have been a shill article. It's hard to say, bro. It could be rivals trying to disrupt transport, etc. Yeah, could be. Could be. If he's squeaky clean, could absolutely be that. Again, you need that much security. Everybody get away from me. Whoever did that unaliving did not calculate the consequences. Not only for the presidency of the republic, but for the United States government. Intelligence reports from the United States since last year, there's been an alliance between the four letters and the Chapitos to confront the faction headed by Maito Flaco, son of Yoma, who is, as we know, detained in the United States. What happened in Zapopan was not an isolated incident, nor something that can be explained lightly. And this is where things get really uncomfortable. Because while official versions try to sell this as an isolated event, the investigations by Anabel Hernandez and her team point to a much bigger, much dirtier scenario with some very big names involved. In that context, Nemesio, Mencho, as a direct accusation but as a logical piece, not as a direct accusation to him, but as a logical piece within the control that the Four Letters Cartel maintains in that area. A control where nothing relevant happens without permission, and along with that name, the name of Ivan also begins to be heard amidst alliances, betrayals, and internal realignments that are shaking Jalisco and its surroundings. Now, are these realignments the same thing that Jose Luis Montenegro was talking about, where the Chapitos, where Ivan is cleaning out his top layer and these guys are taking it over and running it themselves? I don't know. It seems if Annabelle's in this story, because before she wasn't concerned with that. She was concerned with why were they so comfortable? Why was Panu so comfortable in Mexico City? She wasn't concerned with why he was there. She wasn't concerned with any of it. She was concerned with that. But it seems in this, they're going to reach to the alliance and how this can be a restructuring of a Fortune 500 company, right? And now everybody that leaves with their cardboard box from the office with their pictures and stuff, they either get blown down or they go to jail.
You're stealing, right to jail.
That's it.
You're playing music too loud, right to jail, right away. You're driving too fast, jail. Slow, jail.
The key point is this. The Prieto case cannot be understood as a simple isolated attack. The lines of investigation speak of disputes over very specific business, such as the so-called Colombian Raffles that move a lot of money and only work under well-organized structures. When someone steps out of line, when there's disorder or betrayal, the consequences are usually exemplary. And the most delicate thing is that when we put all the pieces together, we're no longer just talking about criminal groups. We're talking about totally controlled areas. About time that stretches out without anyone intervening. About cameras that don't clarify anything. About silences that weigh too heavily. Given the scenario, what follows no longer sounds like theory. It sounds like a warning. Because if Mencho controls the area, if there are reshufflings linked to Ivan, and if the underlying money points to businesses like Raffles, then the real question is not what happened in Zapopan. The question is who allowed it to happen and why. Yes, indeed, the only group that has control of this area where the attack occurred is the Four Letters. The metro area is in dispute with the splinter group of the Four Letters and the Nueva Plaza Cartel. These are the two organizations that are fighting for control of Guadalajara and its metropolitan area. But the area where this attack occurred is completely under the control of the Four Letters. Secondly, although this event occurred over a period of 20 to 25 minutes, according to the authorities, which is a long-ass shootout, according to witnesses, it would also have lasted more than a half hour. During that entire time, no elements of the National Guard, the state police, or the municipal police were present during the crossfire. The authorities in Jalisco pride themselves on having a response time less than 15 minutes when there's a high-impact event. It would therefore mean that this area where the attack occurred is not a remote area, but rather completely urbanized area. It seems that those who perpetrated this attack, as happened in previous situations, asked the authorities to give them some time to carry out this high-impact event and then escape. Hey, y'all chill out, man. Sit y'all ass down real quick. I'm going to handle this real quick, and then y'all come back. All right, we on a We on a schedule around here. So far, despite the existence of a video surveillance system, none of the alleged perpetrators of this unaliving have been apprehended, not even one. It should be noted that the person who unfortunately lost their life had a security detail, something quite unusual, made up of at least 7 people, according to the authorities. They didn't save him, they didn't save his little girl. 7. That was wasted money, wasted life. The authorities of Jalisco government plus other elements that were guarding some properties of this person who lost their life. What we have consequently appears to be, of course, a settling of scores by organized crime against a person about whom we have no reference in the sense that he had a criminal record or links. Indeed, this is a type of a scam that's occurring not only in the Guadalajara metro area in the central part of Mexico, but also Mexico City itself, in the southeast of the country, and also in some border cities. Colombian raffles are draws that are carried out with the supposed delivery of high-end items, vehicles, even apartment houses. But at the time of carrying out the draw, and once a winner is obtained, the prize is not delivered as such. They are actually scams. Merchants are even forced to sell tickets. They are given a quota to sell the tickets for this supposed raffle, but in the end, the prizes are not awarded as such. This approach is not new. In reality, it was invented in the United States by Italian-American mafias who played lotteries and raffles, sometimes handing out money, but they didn't pay the people who won their prizes. And sometimes they did pay them, but then they would take the prize away from them. And that's the same thing that's happening in the Guadalajara metro area. Also, obviously, in the central market, where some merchants, off the record, tell us that they've been forced to receive tickets to market them, to hand over the profit from the sale, but that sometimes when there have been winners, they are not given the prizes by these Colombian mafias. The tricky part is when you stop seeing this as a simple violent operation and start wondering why someone ended up being targeted. Because controlling the area explains the how, but not the why. Colombian raffles are not gossip or something improvised. They are a business that moves enormous amounts of money, especially in key spaces such as wholesale markets and according to various journalistic investigations. This type of business does not operate alone, lightly, or without agreements, with much larger structures. That's where things get tense. When so much money is circulating, any attempt to get out of control, any disorder, or any solo move is costly. It's not a personal matter. It's a matter of discipline and control. If this person was related to that business, and if that business operates under the control of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, then the message changes completely. We are no longer talking about an isolated incident. We are talking about a clear sign of who's in charge of what happens when someone breaks the unwritten rules and of how these types of conflicts are resolved. That's why this story doesn't quite fit with the simple version. This is where money, control of the square, loyalties, and also silences that attract too much attention come into play. With that context, what follows no longer sounds accidental, but part of a much larger pattern. In the case of Guadalajara, of course, what you mentioned is striking, that it happened in broad daylight, in a completely urban area. It wasn't a remote area, of course, but it is something that is certainly recurring. Even the shootouts in high-end shopping centers. It seems that, given the complete control of the 4 letters, the local authorities create security measures when these events are about to occur, but to protect the escape of the criminals. According to emerging journalistic accounts, it appears that there was indeed a security perimeter of Jalisco Public Security Forces, both state and municipal, but they were cordoning off the site and evidently allowing the escape. With the video surveillance systems with the C5 that the Guadalajara metro area has, it was more or less easy to track the vehicles that participated in the shootout, but today we do not have any information.
Too much information and shit.
So the police didn't show up, but they did secure a perimeter that these fools got through. What are we talking about, bro? This is totally unusual. It appears that there's a cover-up strategy by the local authorities, and it seems that they were warned that this situation was going to happen, and what they are doing is covering it up and not advancing the investigation. It's a pattern of behavior. Criminal groups are breaking this kind of narco peace that had been established for the central area of Guadalajara, high-impact events, massacres, multiple unalivings. In this case, a shootout as such could not be committed because obviously it is the state capital, and in several entities of the country, this same concession is given. Even in Mexico City, which long ago ceased to be a sanctuary city, all criminal groups could operate on the condition that they did not carry out these events that embarrassed the authorities. Well, we saw that shit just happen in Mexico City. Went down. In the case of Guadalajara, it was exactly the same. The criminal groups operating in that city had refrained from holding high-impact events at the request of the authorities in the capital of Guadalajara. So you guys don't got no control, man. If you gotta ask permission, man, you ain't got no control. Obviously, there are formal media outlets, social networks. There's a constant presence of video surveillance systems. Citizens can quickly take videos and photos with their cell phones. And there was a kind of barrier to prevent these type of events. Something happened a while ago in Guadalajara. Here's the problem, man. Nobody has yet to tell me, did this guy run one of those raffles? Or was he against those raffles the way that they said in that article? Because everybody says no information.
Too much information and shit.
So which is it? All these high impact events I'm referring to, the Golden Zone of Guadalajara, and areas like Puerta de Hierro, for example, where these types of tip-like events also occur. According to the intelligence reports from the United States government, since last year there's been an alliance between the Four Letters and the Chapitos to confront Maito Flaco, son of Yoma, who we know is detained in the United States. After this alliance, there were several exchanges of mutual support. The Jalisco Cartel pledged to send men, weapons, and ammunition for the war that the Chapitos are waging against the Yomas. And in return, the Chapitos handed over rug trafficking routes. You handed over the keys to the kingdom, man. That shit ain't what it was no more. Goes by a different name now. You let the wolf in the hen house. They also surrendered control of some disputed regions in Mexico. The surrender of some cities where rugs are sold retail in the United States, and the possibility that the Four Letters could use the Pacific route to send rugs on the routes used by the Sinaloa Cartel. And all this in exchange for military support against Maito Flaco. But we also knew that members of the inner circle of the Chapitos were living in the Guadalajara metropolitan area, precisely under the protection of the Four Letters. And this is where it becomes unbelievable. That the arrest of Ivan's father-in-law and brother-in-law has taken place, the Lindoros, and there was no trace, no kind of footprint, no indication that the Four Letters was providing the security that in that theory should have been provided to high-level people in Ivan's inner circle, and even to people very knowledgeable and involved with the financial management of the Sinaloa Cartel. It's hard to believe that security authorities of Jalisco or the people of the CTE Jalisco Four Letters were not supporting the security of Ivan family members, which is all the characteristics of being a betrayal. It was systematically engaged in betrayal and denunciation among its own members. Sometimes these are prearranged betrayals. Sometimes they are betrayals that effectively erode the internal structure of the Sinaloa Cartel. But since the time of El Chapo Guzman, it was already common for Sinaloa Cartel, in order to appease state and federal authorities, including the DEA, to carry out betrayals against members of its own group. Betrayals that sometimes generate civil wars, such as the betrayal against El Chapo Guzman and the Leiva brothers, and other betrayals that were arranged to obtain reduced sentences, such as the information that Vicentillo, the son of Mayo, provided to the United States authorities after he was arrested. I don't rule it out. It's obviously a hypothesis, but it seems very strong to me that there may have been a betrayal, either from his allies in the Four Letters or an internal betrayal within the Sinaloa Cartel itself, which led to the capture of Ivan's father-in-law and brother-in-law. I'm sorry, y'all. That still didn't answer my question. That still didn't tell me whether that dude was on the good guy side or the bad guy side. It instantly jumped into the four letters and the alliance. Was he the guy fighting against the Colombian Raffles, or was he a Colombian raffler? With that being said, we did hear reports that he is under investigation for being involved in these Colombian raffles. Either way, he failed. As a father, he failed.